Number three, when it comes to or when it comes to insurance, is to get a life insurance policy with an accelerated death benefit rider. Really, kind of what we're looking at here is looking for all of the benefits that life insurance can provide. More often than not, that this means that you're buying a whole life policy, but there are some benefits, right? You're going to protect your family. You're going to protect your family income, and also potential protection from lenders if you still have debt. And it also allows you to have some money to leave a legacy, especially if you are a single individual.
But the accelerated death benefit rider, what that does is that lets you borrow against your life insurance policy if you're diagnosed with a terminal illness or life-threatening illness. So it's at the very, provides you that sort of extra coverage for at the very late stage of your life, typically sort of the hospice stage. So that might alleviate some anxiety, hopefully for you, but maybe even especially for your family who's trying to take care of you. And ultimately, if it's done right, it would alleviate them from having any bills to pay after you happen to pass away.
Yeah.
So we can cover all that for you.
And I think one of the other things that a lot of folks forget, although I would say that folks in the 90s, probably in the LGBT community, became a little bit more experts on this, and that is that at a certain point you can tap the cash value if you have a whole life policy. There's a lot of possibilities about how and how much you would get when you try to tap in that for that cash, but that basically means that at a certain point, if you run into an emergency, you do have the ability to tap into that money, take that out. Go back and listen to Queer Money episodes 17 and 139, where we talk a little bit more about getting life insurance, especially with that death benefit rider, as well as folks getting life insurance when they have HIV.
Rare tip number 2 is to update all legal documents and beneficiary information. Now, we're saying this for two reasons. One, we should be doing it anyway to help prepare us for financial independence, but also because of everything that just happened the day before this recording with the upending of Roe v. Wade, and specifically Justice Thomas showing his eagerness to go after Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell next. This has us concerned, and we think it's not only for financial independence reasons, but if those laws are upended and same-sex marriage is dissolved, then we need to have some protections to protect our partners, protect our relationships as much as possible. And it's critical that we don't wait until the law changes. This court has shown its interest in upending people's lives, and it could be a couple months, it could be a couple of years, but we should get our protections in place as quickly as possible and not wait to the very last minute. And if nothing else, you need to do it for your financial independence anyway.
Right. Especially if you live in a state where it is possible, or just think about this, pre-2015, did they have laws on the books that were non-supportive of same-sex couples getting married? So you go back and look at things like advanced medical directives, estate planning and trusts, all these kinds of things. If you have children, get copies of birth certificates, make sure that those birth certificates align with you, both of you as parents, if that you're allowed to do that in your state. All sorts of anything that you can think of regarding your legal documents, healthcare proxies, that kind of stuff. Make sure that you're going through, you want to check all of those, because we don't know. We really don't know we have hope, but we don't know what's going to happen here.
Other things to consider is, like David said, you want to update your will, but you also want to make sure you review and update the beneficiaries on all your accounts. Beneficiaries override anything that's stated in wills. So if you, there's always that one account that you forgot about many moons ago for the firm you worked at, and that has like your ex-spouse, ex-partner, ex-wife, whatever on there. And unfortunately, they then get access to that money because they're listed as the beneficiary. Even if you have somebody else listed in your will as the beneficiary, there's a contradiction there. It always goes to the beneficiary on the specific account. Make sure your insurance policies, your properties that you own, powers of attorney, bank account information, beneficiaries are all updated legally, and that both parties understand everything. And for any assets that you have, such as real estate, shared brokerage accounts, make sure anything else that you might have, hard assets, make sure everything is under a joint tenants with rights of survivorship, which means that for our example, we bought this investment property. It's a joint tenant with rights of survivorship. If something happens to either one of us, it automatically and legally goes to the other person, regardless of our marital status. So that would be the case with any of these types of accounts that we just mentioned. Make sure you do that for yourself and your partner or spouse if that's the way you want the assets divided up, and you don't want to leave the opportunity for unsupportive family members to be able to attack and try to take away those assets from your partner or spouse after you pass away.
Yeah. Number 5 is we want to encourage you to tap into your employer benefits. There are hundreds, some companies have hundreds of employer benefits that people just are not tapping into. I think some of the big ones that we're familiar with, think about tuition reimbursement. I know that there is a desire, especially if you're wanting to reach financial independence, to make as much money as you possibly can. One of the best ways to do that is to increase your skills, increase your knowledge, go back to your boss or move on to another company and say, I have all these new skills, I have all this new knowledge. Tuition reimbursement is one of the best ways to do that. And remember, you don't necessarily need to be working for a company full time to get access to tuition reimbursement. There are a lot of companies out there who will give you kind of almost a prorated access to the roughly $5,250 that they are allowed to taxably or tax-free give to you as a way to support you going to school and getting more knowledge. But one of the other big things that we talked about on episode, I think it was 262 of the Queer Money podcast, is the EPRA, or the Employer Repayment Employer Participation Repayment Act, which allows companies to shift money that would be for tuition reimbursement over to be used for paying off student loan debt for those employees. Please make sure, check to see if your company does this. We know that there are people who are working for companies that are not aware of this, and they are literally giving up thousands of dollars a year of money that could be paid to their tuitions. To their student loans. So definitely check in on this.
Other benefits that might be available to you are obviously your employer match from a 401k is pretty popular. Employer life and disability insurance, health savings, and flex savings accounts, which are great for covering medical expenses. But other things to consider are some firms offer employer legal services. That's actually how David and I got our original will and estate set up, was we went through an employer legal service. It gave a huge discount.
Yeah.
I think we only paid like $50 or $75 to have that done. It was crazy cheap. So, and we know that some people in the Queer Money Facebook group have actually taken advantage of this recommendation and it's worked for them. So check to see if we're talking about adding, checking all your legal documents and getting everything in order in case the Supreme Court comes after your marriage. That could be expensive, but you can offset that expense maybe through your employer. As David suggested earlier, check out your ESPP account. Other things you might not be aware of, things like cell phone plan discounts can be offered, travel and rideshare discounts, pet insurance, childcare reimbursement. As David said, there are hundreds of benefits that some companies offer that people just don't know, they're not familiar with, and they get added to benefits all the time, and the company doesn't make a big announcement about it. So do your homework, contact your HR department or your benefits department, and see if you can't get an updated list of all your benefits, and then make sure you use all the ones that are available to you, especially to the extent that they can help you reach financial independence.
Yeah, I think one of the things to remember here with tapping into your employer benefits is that is a way that you can, in some ways, reduce your expenses that other people cannot, right? Especially if you work for a larger employer, you're going to tap into some of those benefits that allow you to reduce your expenses, which is money then you can shift over to your retirement plan, to your investments, so that you can build up the money that you want for becoming financially independent.
Exactly. So to recap, first, lay the foundation, take advantage of a company-sponsored retirement plan. And then the rare steps to take after that are to invest in your employer through an ESPP account, get an annuity, get insurance, update your legal documents, get assets under a joint tenants with rights of survivorship and beneficiary information, and then take advantage of as many employer benefits as you possibly can, because as David said, it can offset some of your costs. Doing even one of these would be huge progress in helping you reach financial independence. So stay tuned for your Queer Money takeaway from this episode.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Queer Money Podcast. Here's your takeaway from this episode. The challenges we face and the goals we want to reach can sometimes feel like too much. Breathe, pick a plan, Take one step at a time, check it off, and then move on. You can make the progress.
Exactly. Then join us next week when we talk about easy ways to calculate your retirement number or to see if you're on track to retire when you'd like. We'd all would love that, right? Thank you and have a great week.